This episode is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Pizant Building Products. Pizant Building Products has been providing contractors and builders with the supplies necessary to complete their jobs since 1964. They have built a reputation of honest, helpful, and quality service, serving the HRM for the last 58 years, now with 7 locations in Nova Scotia and 1 in New Brunswick. Our team at Atlanta Construction Podcast is extremely excited to announce our new co-branded partner, Procore. Procore is the global leader in construction management software. We'll be conducting several podcast episodes with Procore users and construction companies across the country in 2023, among many other things. Stay tuned. We're excited. Okay, welcome back to the Atlanta Construction Podcast. Excited to have our first electrical subcontractor on the show today. Able Electric. Couldn't think of a better company to start that off with. So we have President Mike Castellani and Adam Castellani. Thanks a lot for being here, guys. Our first, have many subcontractors on the show, but our first electrical contractor. So I couldn't think of a better company to start that off with. So thanks for coming. Thanks for being here.
Dan, it's our pleasure. We really consider this an honor. We've watched your work, watched this podcast grow, and we're thrilled to be here today.
Thanks, Mike. And so we have just to clarify for our listeners, it's a father and son here. Start with you, Mike, and maybe just tell us a little bit about sort of your background and obviously taking over as president in 2016 of Able, and just sort of what led up to that and how it's been for just the last 6 years. It's hard to sum that up in a few minutes, but just give us some context.
Well, it's a great question. People ask me how I got in this business. I'm not an electrician per se. I have a corporate background. I've been involved in commodity sales, capital sales, service-based sales, organizations. My last corporate job was 12 years, and we got tremendous amount of training there. And so the opportunity came up in early 2016. I was at another location under a contract. And I learned about Able Electric, great brand name, great presence.
Since 1973, right?
1973. So it's coming up to 50 years next year. So the opportunity presented itself. The owner was leaving the business. So, we put it together. We bought Able Electric. There were some great people there. It was just a bit of a tired company and just need a fresh look. And 6 years later, we've grown appreciably. One of my mantras is continued growth, but it has to be sustainable. A lot of people can take on the big project, buy new trucks, look glamorous right out of the gate. Now, we took a very patient approach and grown and brought on some skill sets.
Is that an approach that you've learned over the years, like in prior experiences? I find that, I made this mistake myself as previously being a contractor, but a lot of times it's like people are talking about how many men do you have working for you? How big are the projects? You mentioned like just having the nice trucks, the glamorous, but playing chess instead of checkers and being really having a lot of finesse about the projects you go after. And that's a difficult thing because it's constant decisions, years before you even act on them sometimes.
Yes, that's a really good point. You used the term there, chess versus checkers. I think that's something we use on the business as we grow it. We're not going to chase every bit of business that's out there. We go after what we're good at. And, we have a wide range of skill sets, and it's what we're good at that we will excel. And there's different ways we go to market. But to get back to the original part is the plan for growth. It has to be incremental. You can't swing for the fences. You want to build a roof on your house, but if you don't have a good foundation, that house is going to fall down. So we used the skill sets that we had in there, added it. And the big thing for us is we brought a lot of visibility into the business, and it's process-driven, metrics-based. So we get away from the gut decisions, and it's a factual, math-based decision of how we pursue business, how we want to add infrastructure into our company, adding the additional resources, be it manpower or software. You brought up another point that I spoke with earlier this week, someone else, and was how many people do you have? Well, we've got X number of employees, but I don't need any more. I would rather have things arrive kitted, pre-built, optimize other resources because time is so valuable. We're in a commodity-based market. Some of our things are. And I want to be able to drive value with efficient as possible because timelines are so stretched now. Supply chain issues, waiting on other trades, manpower. You don't need as many people if you do your business smart. That's my opinion. That's how we go to market.
Yeah, and I mean, even to add to that, we kind of look at that in the office setting as well. There's a labor shortage out there in the construction sector, but that also exists in terms of finding the right people on the administrative side, project management. There's I don't want to say a lack of skill set out there, but there's definitely a shortage. So how can we maximize what we have in-house right now in terms of efficiencies? A lot of it is really coming down to embracing technology. So that way, we're able to manage more work, but still be able to execute the way we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking to Dalhousie University in their continuing education program last week about some of the courses they offer that have accreditation for Gold Seal and stuff like that. And just a big topic was the labor shortage. And depending, I'm not sure exactly what it's like within the electrical trade, but a lot of the trades prior to the pandemic, just a big drop through the last couple of years in people entering apprenticeship programs. So that gap's going to be lasting. It's going to affect us in it. Like, what are you're talking about, like in-house training? You're talking about ways that you can sort of bridge that gap within the company structure to keep people educated, kind of.
Exactly. I mean, we kind of have to separate that into two things, which would be, our office staff and then the field staff that we have. Really, the field staff, that is something that we as an industry have to lean into to promote the trades. There's a lot of great paying jobs out there, and I'll admit myself that I was probably a little naive in terms of what opportunities were out there for the trades before I joined the sector. So that's something that it's a group effort where we all have to try to bring people in. It's not one company going out and recruiting people to join. Yeah. And then, the office staff, that really comes down to hiring the right people that are willing to embrace an environment where everything we do, how can we do it more efficiently? It's continuous improvement and the willingness to embrace change. So having the right people to do that allows us to, implement efficiencies.
For sure. I think it's interesting that you brought up, just maybe having some, or being a bit naive at a younger age about what it meant to be in the trades or what it could offer, or maybe the level of salary. And that's kind of one of the things we're hoping that our media platform can bridge the gap there, just in ongoing conversations. Like, we're just providing a platform. We have great guests and expertise in the industry, but just to shed light on what it's actually like to enter into the workforce. What does it mean to be a journeyman electrician, or an architect, or in carpentry and some of these commercial, institutional jobs. And it is a great career. And sometimes people, they're growing up in a family full of lawyers and they're thinking they'd like to be out working with their hands, and they feel that it's less status wise, or I might not be articulating that correctly, but like, just to have a little bit more of an onus on, no, this is a good path. Like, this is a respectful way to make a living. This is an honorable way to, and a respect, does that make sense?
There can definitely be a stigma out there.
Yeah, it's a stigma.
That's kind of
lots of stigmas out there, right? Yeah.
But I think you touched on it there, education. Go back to high school. I know when I went back, I was in high school in the 80s. University. Don't go to vocational school. And we've heard that for years and years, that it's still like that. But we're a unionized company, and I'm not here to tout union versus non-union, but our electricians, they make very good money. There's tons of work out there, and they're all electricity is not going away with the greening of the economy.
Methods might be changing like everything else, but like, it's
Methods,
not going away.
right? Tools
Yeah.
that you use may change, but
Yeah.
principles of electricity, Ohm's law is still going to be around for
Yeah.
generations.
Someone asked me last week, like, is all this new technology, like, are we gonna lose out on positions? Like, it's gonna be less. It's like, no, I don't think so. I mean, technology is always going to advance, but you're always going to need the right guys that are doing the job. Like, that's never going to change.
Right. And one of the things, and Adam and I had this discussion not long ago, there's different types of learners, the ones go to university, auditory, visual, that the
Sure,
trades
yeah.
go by,
Yeah.
and tactile, which is
Right
also
and left brained. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
They went to vacation school. They're not as sharp as that other guy, the stigma. We have a lot of very, very smart people in the industry, very good business acumen, very good technical skills, great leadership skills. And it doesn't matter if you're a law firm, doctor's practice, accounting, whatever it be, you still need those skills, right? At the end of the day, all businesses succeed on making a profit, okay? And if you don't have those people in your business, you're not going to make profit. It's a people-driven business like everything else is. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
That's right. Yeah, I think especially like as a business owner, and you have those hires, and you have people that are in those positions, are facilitating your company's revenue and money, and monitoring other people and dollars and material, and whenever they're doing their job well, like especially if you've experienced different people who haven't, man, they're so appreciated.
They are. And for our company, and I know successful companies, we call it dashboards. We're very dashboard driven. I can come in, I'll be out of the business for 2 days for whatever. And I can open up the dashboards, health and safety, we have a dashboard. Service on our service revenue, dashboard. Everything's on a dashboard. We can see it. And that's the bridging the gap between the field and the office, the information flowing back and forth, right. Good communication skills, right. Leadership, okay? Yeah. And you don't have, it's inherent to any business success. And one of our pillars of our business is our good people, yeah. Right? And I think most companies that succeed have really good people.
Yeah. I know one of Abel's taglines, correct me if I'm wrong, but doing business differently. And what does that mean? You mentioned it's a people-driven business, bridging the gap between, call it white collar, blue collar, the office and the site, both just as important as each other, like lean methodologies and stuff. But Adam, can you speak to a little bit of that, just being in operations and sort of like maybe just a little bit of context of like your employees on the office side, like estimators, logistics manager, like a big thing is lead times and all the, extensive specs and materials that you guys need to order on some of these jobs, and just kind of take us through a little bit about the company as a whole and maybe.
Right. So, I mean, Mike kind of mentioned it earlier that, it's process driven, metrics based, and customer centered. And for me, really, it comes down to the process. We try to make it as visible as possible, identify our key team players in every process, put them into swim lanes, and then going further to that, we'll start tracking our cycle times, whether it be shop drawings, how long it takes to bill out a service invoice, how long it takes to price up a change order and get our approvals. So by tracking that, it's not something that we have to go above and beyond. It's kind of built into our process. Right. And then we can identify where our gaps are. So then we'll get together with our team players and do, I guess we call it a process improvement meeting, get everyone's opinion on it, and then we're able to measure our improvement. But we always need to get that baseline to start off with and identify our problems. So, how does that make us do business differently? Well, ultimately, we want to be known as the best executors out there when it comes to the project. We want to minimize the bandwidth that it takes to actually manage us and deliver value to the customer and the end user. It's something that they should be factoring into choosing Able as a partner. We talk about the race to the bottom, low price versus low cost. one of the things that, if you have a trade that is not engaging stakeholder, they can throw off the entire project. It leads to
Absolutely.
right?
So much autonomy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah. The weakest link, you're as good as the weakest link.
and that really goes back to whether it's the general contractor or the end user, something that they should be factoring into their overall cost of the project and the delivery timeline. So for us, it's one of those things. We want to be known as the best executor. We always talk about being known as best in class as well. Mm-hmm. We want people to come to us knowing that from a health and safety perspective, we won awards for that. We embrace the dashboard, digital technology, ensuring our distribution lists are all up to date. And when it comes to the processes, a lot of the times we'll work with customers who might not necessarily have a robust process for a key part of the project, and ultimately it defaults to ours. Whether it's change order logs, submittal logs, we have those things in place. So if it doesn't exist on the project or, with a customer, we're able to bring that to the table. We like to think that by providing that information in a transparent manner, the GCs don't really have to worry about us in a sense.
And you mentioned the race to the bottom earlier, and, it's one thing with the mental energy and the organization to set up all your systems and your metrics and your processes and then monitor them and hold that data accountable and people accountable. But I think it's interesting, like even some of our guests that are listening, whether they're part of a general contracting firm or even outside the industry, just like the mental energy it takes to decide what and what not to bid on, and just being able to catch those decisions early where you're going to say no, and save hundreds of hours of unnecessary, not wasted, but maybe wasted time, and stay away from all this. We've got some private relationships here, ongoing work. We're going to just talk a little bit about how it's like to manage like those upper decisions that just trickle down.
Well, you really highlighted it very well. After a number of years compiling our data based on our revenue streams, okay, we have different revenue streams coming into the business, be it service-based, projects, size, scope. Yeah. But Adam alluded to it earlier. It's not a dollar value. It's a function of the process. That is so important because then we know what swim lanes, the bandwidth to manage a project. And as well as the projects we've executed, we know where we do well. We can know, no offense to any contractors out there, but we know some contractors run their business better than others.
Sure.
That is mission critical. If we see customer GCX, GCY, GCZ, we refer back to our metrics. Okay, it's this specific type of project, be it a fit up, service, mechanical upgrade, whatever. And these are the bidders, and these are the contractor subs they use. Okay. We're not going to be successful in there. We will get the job done, but is it going to take too much bandwidth from us to manage?
Yeah.
Is the chances of success greatly diminished? Yes. So we're very fortunate now, compounded with the sheer volume of work that's out there right now for bidding on. And the bid spec business is tough because it's a lot of time it's a race to the bottom. And two parts to that is we do a lot of value-based purchasing. Doesn't mean our wholesaler comes in with the best price, but if they can support that large order, we're going to reward them the business. Knowing we're spending a couple percentage points higher.
Yeah, sure.
It could be a couple $1,000s more or less. But if it's less bandwidth for us to manage, it's going to reach site smoother. We're going to go use them. And then our customers, and one of our more successful projects this year, we're working with what we consider a best-in-class contractor. And it's there's no drama. It's noise-free. We got people on there, but they have processes. We have processes.
Just synergized.
Exactly. They're synergized.
I haven't had a single, I don't want to say conflict on the job yet, but in terms of, noise that comes back to the office or, a fire to put out. It's been almost a year now, and the job, just because all the stakeholders are actively engaged, they were all selected through a value-based process. So everybody's aware of the team players that are there. And it's just been a dream,
I'm
honestly.
getting chills when you say that, just because, and I know you guys have experienced it, and other people that might be listening. But if you haven't been in the construction industry and you haven't been part of a large project that didn't go well, just to have something go so smooth that it's almost too good to be true. It's just this is, and it's such a good feeling too. It's when that team comes together and just starts playing as a team, and it's just everybody's kind of humbled themselves and is set into their roles and accepted it, and it's just here we go.
Yeah. Well, it was a leap of faith on probably the customer to bring us in for that particular job, but we had some traction with some of the stakeholders that were in that. And stakeholder engagement, partnership, and engagement is mission critical to success. Adam will probably talk better about it, but the generational gap we see right now, we can use the labels X, Generation X, Z, whatever.
Yeah, and that's what they are.
But they're labels. There's a lot of good people. And yes, some of the younger people in the business are not as experienced.
Yeah.
But boy, are they ever sharp.
And eager.
And want to learn, right? And, and then people that are hiring them, employing them as, for example, a project manager or coordinator, it's a leap of faith. But if you can teach them a process and understand what's going on and the impact of what they're doing.
And it's a risk too, right? But I mean, you're going to see the eagerness. You're going to see that there's confidence there. They're not quite there yet, but it's always going to be a risk. I think this guy can do it, but I'm going to have to take a risk and see.
Well, is he coachable?
Yeah, that's
right. Can you provide him the tools to make him successful?
Yeah.
Will you mentor him? Employee engagement is so valuable. I take a lot of pride in the fact that I go into our office and even out to the field, the camaraderie, just the laughing in the office, poking at each other's mistakes, because everyone makes mistakes daily.
Yeah.
We make a wrong decision.
It's okay to make mistakes.
It's
right?
okay.
Just got to learn from them.
You got to learn from them. If people, I call it acts of commission and acts of omission. If an act of commission is, I've had this problem, I tried this, and I based it on this, and this, but it didn't work. Well, I said, at least you tried and you learned. It's the acts of omission. Anybody could have solved it. Somebody should have. Nobody did. Drives me bananas.
Yes.
Right? Because
that's different.
Yeah, the multiple touches to go back and fix that.
That's what costs.
Right? Or that perception that you have from the customer that you didn't care. Right? So, highly engaged workforce is so important. But there's two terms I use a lot, and they're oxymorons: construction ethics. And CANS teaches a course on it, and hopefully it's used, but I've seen a lot of shady stuff going through the years. And the other one is construction empathy. How many generals have empathy for their subcontractors or their project manager working for a corporation that doesn't understand what they're asking for or what they ask for, how it impacts others? We got to get away, and no one wants to be. My father was in construction back in the 70s, 80s, whatever. And I can remember as a young fellow going out into sites, and there was a lot of that authoritative stuff,
Yeah, of
right?
course, yeah.
He was the white hat.
I mean, we need a certain level of it for sure.
Right? But it's got to be collaborative. Yeah. And that's another thing that I think the younger generation will bring more of because of the transparency, be it dashboards. Site Docs is a system we use very successfully for health and safety, and you're sharing the data. It's very transparent. So that communication, understanding other people's stakeholders' involvement and responsibility is so important. Did you want to add something to that, Adam?
We kind of talked about it. Stakeholder unawareness is something that can seriously impact a project costs and, a whole program in general. Whether it's the end users, public, government-based, or a private customer, if they don't have an awareness of all the stakeholders involved in a job, it's ultimately going to cost more. It's going to drive up costs, and there's also schedule and delivery time impacts. There might be a mandate that comes out, and with that being said, all the decisions are seen through such a narrow lens that they're unable to take a macro approach to certain things. So you have to be aware of all the stakeholders involved to realize what is the impact of this decision, whether it's small or large. So that way you can continue the whole project, continue to execute. And if they're not aware, that is something that it costs everybody money and time on the job, right? Making decisions without an understanding of the impact to the overall project, and not even understanding how many stakeholders are involved. Is it 1 degree of separation that you want to look at? Is it 2 degrees? I've done that analysis before for some jobs, and you start going just on our branch of the stakeholder tree, who we could impact on a customer side, and then who we would impact on our supplier side or subcontractor side. And then you go with 2 degrees of separation, you start getting into hundreds of people. And that's just on the electrical contractor branch. So if you have a dozen sub-trades on the job, that gets multiplied, and it's not just 2 degrees of separation. It goes down to 3, 4. And with a supply chain that's impacted right now the way it is, you're only as strong as your weakest link. Well, let's just say that there's a couple thousand stakeholders involved in a job in terms of, top to bottom. Well, if you have, a couple percent of them that aren't engaged or are unaware, and there's not a process in place to manage those stakeholders that may not be delivering on, their promises or their expectations, then the whole thing can fall apart pretty quickly. And that is more likely to be brought in with the low price versus low cost. You want to choose partners that bring value to the project. And, Mike alluded to that. We practice what we preach. We will do that analysis when we are choosing our partners for a project.
Yeah, I mean, some of the topics and items that we've been talking about, just such great points. And it makes me think of, we had Lindsay's on the show a few months back.
It was Corey and Devin.
Corey and Devin. And one of the things I think we kind of touched on was, as a leader in the company on the office side, whether, president, CEO, COO, similar to the situation with both of you here, you just think of the things that we've just discussed. All these variables, all this vision, all the data to take into perspective, so many decisions. And sometimes, we talked about the blue collar and the white collar side, the bridge between the site and the office. And sometimes it's a matter of not understanding what that person really does. Mm-hmm. I know you're a seasoned veteran, and but could you speak to that? Just, you don't have the luxury to go and point and say, look what I did the last 6 months. Sometimes, it's not there, tangible, physical, you know what I mean? Physically, like a lot of site guys do, right?
Right.
You're thinking years ahead. There's so many layers, so many depths. A lot of people don't necessarily understand that, and that's okay. People are different. But, the guys on the site, it's get it done. It's different. It's a different thing. But if we could have a little better understanding, it might, I don't know.
Yeah,
know.
Well,
does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And the reason why I was smiling is you talked about me being as the leader of the organization and the other leaders you mentioned. Yeah, it's difficult to be out there. And as people, we often default back to what we're comfortable with. Adam and the other operations, they want me out of the weeds. Okay, why is this job a little sideways? Or, boy, we did good there. What are we going to learn there? I want that information. So getting that message out and understanding people is very important. And, you talk about what the guys do. We put a lot of things on LinkedIn. Our project success and all that. That's great for the customers, helps our brand awareness. But what really the real key part of that is the
Testimonies.
testimonies, but it's also the guys that participated in that project.
Yes. Yeah.
It's their notch on their belt. Hey,
Exactly.
I was part of that project. I'm being recognized. Tough tough economy for workers, finding the proper workforce. So having a highly engaged workforce is so important.
Yeah.
You know, and with the evaluating projects, yeah, your project was great. And I often say, well, that's great. You did a work of art behind that drywall, and all those conduits are in straight, and it's a work of art, and you did it 4 times because you can.
And that's what it is for them.
It
is an
is.
art form. And they do take the same kind of pride in it.
They do. And you have
it's an
to,
expression of themselves.
Exactly.
It's an art form.
I've walked in some electrical rooms, right? And it's mind-boggling what they've done with 4-inch conduit and feeders and all kinds to get everything in a room for these large institutions or commercial, whatever the customer may be.
Years of experience to do
It does take years of experience, and we need to appreciate that. And where I'm going with that is, one of the challenges I had, I'm an outsider into this business, the electrical contracting, did lower voltage work for a number of years. People look at me differently. You don't have the notches on your belt. We're still here 6 years later, and the company continues to grow.
There you go.
So that's one thing. But we do the metrics, but the guys that we talked to a little bit about, they worked on that job. If you put up how they performed on the job, you want to see the engagement change and the body language change of the employees and the electricians. Previous life, it was technicians. Right back into the job I did in the 90s for a company for several years. You want to see the employee engagement and people come out of their chair when they see their performance up against their coworkers, how this particular job did versus this job. And it's very important to articulate that message back to them of what went wrong and what went right. But you've got to take out what the best practices were, what the struggles were. And if that struggle is common through your business, you need to address it. And Adam,
what a task to do that, though, to constantly be communicating affirmation, what went wrong, to constantly be back and forth doing that.
We're not the best at it. I'll tell you right now, we're not the best at it.
But you do try.
We do. And if a guy wants to know how he's doing, we will definitely show them.
Yeah.
Okay. It's hard to bring everyone. It's very expensive. As a business owner, I see companies do town halls. In my head, I'm calculating how many people are in that room, for how long, and what the cost is. What is the ROI on that?
Yeah.
And is it worth it? And it absolutely is worth it.
Yeah.
Okay. It's tough to do, tough to make the commitment. But it goes back to that, having an engaged workforce, and you're only good as your employees, and how to get that message out there and the people want to work and deliver value.
I know you have something to add, Adam, but just before you do, I wanted to, it just came to me, it's really interesting how you just explained all that. And I think a big part of what we realized in just having this, call it a mutual platform, just an ongoing conversation with everybody weighing in from different perspectives. It's been really humbling and amazing because there's so many different backgrounds, so many different levels of expertise and different roles in the industry to come together to make these buildings happen. But you mentioned earlier, like, not only is construction, a huge part of backbone of the economy in Atlantic Canada in many places, but maybe here more than some places, it seems to have this cultural factor. Like, it's part of the aura of, people are constantly driving by and saying, whether it was 20 years ago or 10 years, like, I worked on that job. I laid all the facade on that exterior, that whole building there. I remember doing this. I remember this story. There's people do take a lot of pride in it. And if you can capture and understand that as a business owner, it's like a coach understanding his players. Like, if you can, they'll respond because you reach them on that level of passion, right?
For sure. And it's one of those things, we drive around the city and, oh yeah, it's so-and-so doing that job, right? On the general. And, this is the developer. You kind of know all of that, right? And who's doing what. And it's funny what you remember. There was a project that we were talking about yesterday, And I mentioned, oh, this GC did that 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm thinking to myself, how do you know that? Because you've only been in the industry for 4 years, right? But there's just that much awareness out there for what other people have done.
Yeah.
And, it's there for what we've done as well. And so making sure we recognize that, really when it comes down to putting that out there, the guys on site or the girls on site, they deserve that recognition, because a lot of the times it comes from the top down where, the owner, oh, check out my new facility. And then the general contractor takes their,
Yes.
okay, we help put this together. And then same with the electrical trade. Oh, look at Able Electric's new project that they've recently completed. But really that recognition needs to go down to the guys and the girls on site that have, built that from
Feet
the
on
ground up.
Building.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's something that we need to do a better job of. We've, really tried to bring that forward in our company in terms of recognizing those individuals.
And you've enabled them. You've enabled them to be there, part of that job, and help build it. You've given them that opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the opportunity's there, but they need to capitalize on it, or the next guy's coming.
Yeah,
because
that's
we
right.
won't be in business.
Well, you just don't have time, right? I mean, 2 weeks longer on the schedule with a 4-man crew, and your margin's gone. I mean, whatever. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and that's it, and that's where we actively manage a lot of our business, and talked about earlier how you manage your business differently. Well, we've got a lot of materials and suppliers that feed us. There's 4 principles that we walk on. I'm going to talk a trade secret now: tools, materials, skill set, and scope. We make sure our people have the right tools. You've seen this, Dan. People trying to
They need the right tools. Yeah.
trying to install studs with the Canadian Tire drill that the batteries did, right? So we go best in class that we can. We want our guys to be productive and confident and no health and safety risks.
Yeah, that's a big thing, right?
We also, just jump in before you move on the tools, is that we encourage our team to come forward with solutions, whether or not it's something they've seen on site that another contractor's using.
And you need them to come forward.
Bring it to us.
Can't
We
catch
want
everything.
to evaluate every single solution that's out there to see, what is our ROI. Is, with a labor shortage that's, here impending, not really going to resolve within the next, few years. What are these efficiencies that we can pick up? Is there a health and safety consideration there? So that is paramount to us, is bring us recommendations. And that gets down right to our first year apprentices.
Right. And, it's retention and keeping our apprentices, training them the way we want to do things. But I was talking tools, materials, skill set, and scope. If we don't have those in place, the jobs will go sideways. I don't care the metrics, who you have on the job, whatever. Well, who you have on the job is the skill set. But they also need to understand the scope, use the tools, and make sure the materials are there. We have multiple suppliers coming in, different manufacturers. One large project we're taking on, that's going to be 9, I think, different packages of materials coming from wholesalers.
This could be like Source Atlanta. It could be Rexel. It could be like just all kinds
it could
of
be
different
all
ones,
of them, right?
Yeah.
Once again, we'll look at value-based purchasing to consolidate that for that particular opportunity as more we're doing this. Where I was going with that is we have to manage our stakeholders, manage our suppliers. We have to communicate with them what we expect, what they deliver. If there's a change on their schedule, just communicate with us. Don't hide it.
Or don't try and make it sound better than it is.
Don't
please.
just give me the truth, man.
Tell me the truth.
I learned long ago. Don't lie to people because you're not smart enough to be a liar.
Yeah.
Even if you've been the truth, the salesman answer. We joke. Are you giving me the salesman's math today? You giving me contractor math, or you giving me the real math?
Yeah, it's like freedom of speech. Like that, you can say whatever you want, but eventually the truth is gonna
That's
come.
right, and the truth is going to bite you. You know where. So that's one of the things we do is manage the stakeholders, communicate, and some of our guys have services. You look at your laptop here. Other guys, that would be a paperweight.
Yeah.
right? But it's their skill set. Boy, they know how to lay out things and have great skill set and understand what needs to be done and know how to train an apprentice to maximize their resources.
Yeah.
Because just because you're a journeyman doesn't mean you're a good teacher for apprentices.
Yeah, exactly. Right. There's a lot of, that's actually a rare thing to find, somebody who's extremely skilled and experienced, who also has the intangible skills to coach and teach. And when you do find them, those people are great to have in your company.
Well, you
can see a ROI for 5 years. You might not be able to measure it.
That's why we want to keep those guys around.
Yeah.
And Adam was alluding to the tools, which reminded me of something. We want to know these tools, and we're not trying to minimize our workforce, because more work we have on, more employees we need. And yeah, we could take on more work because we have the bandwidth, because we're scalable, but it's finding the right people. But we also want to increase the longevity of our employees. If you're using a lousy drill or an impact gun, or don't know how to use it, carpal tunnel, for example, will develop, bad shoulder, bad elbow. The trades is a hard work. I look at our electricians. They're the first guys in on a new build. They'll be down in the trenches putting some duct bank or whatever in.
That's right. Yeah, right in the civil stage.
Right, the civil stage, right through to the end. And we're last guy
putting the lights in the ceiling when they're popping tiles out. Yeah.
Exactly, as my whole back account grows.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a whole other discussion. We'll need an extra hour, Dan.
Yeah. We'll have to go for 2 hours here. I'm just nodding to Ryan on the side here.
Right. So, but it's the longevity and the better health for our employees. If they see we're using the best tools, guaranteed uptime with our fleet program for our tools, it's very important they understand that and see that. And some of our older guys say, yeah, thanks for doing that, because they climb ladders all day long. Those work boots are on concrete floors. It can be a hard job on your body.
I don't want to give away any secrets, but believe it or not, we actually were implementing a new tool today, something that we were approached. It was a solution by one of our wholesalers.
Okay.
And we've actually encouraged everybody, leave your job site and go watch this kind of more or less
tutorial.
A demo. Yeah, it's a demo. So you might be able to implement that on your job site, as opposed to, talking about this tool. They can go there and actually see it, one of their coworkers. And that's something that's actually happening this morning.
Wow.
So
good segue.
Yeah, well, it was an important initiative for us, and we've debated this. And I actually had an older fellow tell me this the other day. He said, the only way you're going to get it adopted, particularly on your older crew, is you tell them this is what needs to be done.
Right.
But you're going to run into headwinds.
Mm-hmm.
In the trades, generally, they're visual learners. They don't read instructions. They look at plans.
Yeah.
And we forget that.
Yeah.
Right? The salesman comes in or the consultant comes in, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
In one ear, out the other. Put it on paper for them. Show them how it is. I think in one change order in particular, there was 2 months of emails back and forth. Finally, everyone met in the office, put it down on paper. 5 minutes, the problem was solved.
Yeah, you get the wall and ceiling drywall foreman and electrical talking to each other.
Yeah.
This wall's a little too narrow.
And this is why.
Shim it out 2 inches.
All we had to do was three of us diagram it
Save
together.
10
and we were just like, oh my
5
God.
meetings and like.
Yeah, it was, after that, they had an hour book. They talked about who was going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. Bengals.
Well, it's not the Patriots. Cool Joe. We like Cool Joe.
Yeah, Joe Burrow. He's the man.
But so we want to, so in that, and we forget that these guys are tactile users. And I joke in our electrical wholesalers, I may be a little hard on some of them, but I want the people that will get traction with us, and I think you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, Dan, is the people that bring us value. We get a lot of me toos. Oh, I'll do that for you. Where do you need the price to be? No.
But they understand what you need.
When they understand, they give me a business
They
plan.
understand the business.
Business plan. I agree. I have this much business with you. I don't need $1. I want a percentage of your spend. That was an interesting thing I learned not long ago. It's a different way to look at it. I'm still learning. Understand my business and we'll show you what we can do. That's what I think we do really well at Able is we have our processes, and whether it's a large multi-million-dollar project or a small office fit up or the service call, okay, we have the process and we will bring you value, and we can measure how we're doing. Okay, we measure our support. And I'll just use an example. I'm not going to go on the whole example because it's a little embarrassing, because a guy introduced me a while back, and I said, "Oh yeah, you're the guy that measures all the suppliers, aren't you?"
Measures all the suppliers, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, well, I guess that's my claim to fame. Fellow
Right.
with me, yeah. Don't try math on that guy.
Yeah.
And he was actually a electrical contractor friend of mine. You know.
But you're controlling your business.
Yeah, well, yeah, he was a friend of me. We'll call him. But anyways, so you know that. So we can articulate to the customer, okay, Mr. Wholesaler, you took 3 weeks to turn those shop drawings around. We expect you committed to 4 or 5 days. So you've impacted the schedule for 2 weeks. Goes to the consultant. Oh, it sat in the GC's mailbox. And now there's 3 weeks, and they're screaming at us. No, here it is right here. So now you've impacted the schedule 6 weeks. Worst case.
Your critical path has just been
Destroyed. Right? So what we are doing, and we talked about the logs and so on, Adam that really developed the system on that. And that's one of the benefits that we have is we have Adam, because he came in the business not tainted, fresh. This is what we need, Adam. Adam went to work on it, and he's learned the business as he's gone along. But to get back to that is we manage a lot of our stakeholders, manage our partners. Is it added cost to us? Yeah. People say, why do you have that particular overhead? Well, I can articulate the story and the value of it, you know, and I've heard this from more than one that says, you're the only people that do that specific thing or this other task.
Right, yeah. So it's different, and so it's going to catch people's attention.
Well, yeah, but not everyone buys into it.
Right.
You know,
But it's working.
It is, and as we morph into different profiles of business, you know, different verticals we want to play in because we're smarter about what we do now than we did 5 years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's more opportunities out there.
Yeah.
You know, as I say, our funnel versus our active bid log is, you know, what's in the funnel still, even with the recession looming, is still pretty impressive.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not just for us. That's
for many people.
Yeah.
That's a good overall general comment to hear on the show. Like, you know, like that means that there's other people in the same situation.
Right.
And yeah, can we talk a little bit just about your thoughts on the current market? You know, private, public, maybe some jobs that you have currently or you've done recently that you're extremely proud of. I'm thinking of like Under Armour in Dartmouth, the Bio on the Dow campus. I mean, there's lots of bigger ones than that. There's institutional, there's retail, and then maybe a little bit about the Cape Breton office.
We're really excited about a Cape Breton operation. Of course, with anything new expansion, you're going to have some growing pains.
Just the new market, the culture, all kinds of external
stuff.
stuff.
Culture is something, you know, we never really touched on. When we hire, it has to be a cultural fit. And when we moved to Cape Breton, it was a cultural fit with potential employees and existing employees. So that made it easier. Like any company, we had growing pains, headwinds, competition.
Can I ask, when did you open an office there? Was it 5 years ago?
No, I think it was 2 years ago.
Okay.
It was May of 2021.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been like 18 months.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Year and a half.
Just before we move into the projects, though, I do want to, you know, he says that we manage our stakeholders on both sides of things.
Sure.
You know, we want to present ourselves as actually being less management to our customers, right?
Yeah, it's a better way to articulate it.
Right. And, you know, with that being said, that's how we do our procurement. It's okay, this supplier overall, they're going to deliver value, but it's going to cost us less management time to use them to deliver the same solution or, a solution with more value to it. And that's how we want to present ourselves to our customers, right? It's something that, we're willing to take on our end, but ultimately that's it's one of those things where we want to practice what we preach.
Yeah, it's providing the tools. It's a value add that we take out and help promote our customers, promote what we do. We want to be end of the day, we want to be best in class, right? There's lots of subcontractors, be it plumbing, electrical, whatever. We just do business what we think is right. It may not be for everybody. We're not a mystery. We've got great people at the end of the day, very high skill set, and we just operate on certain fundamentals and principles. And that's been my background.
And that's got to help it. I'm not familiar with how competitive it is in Atlantic Canada as far as like electrical
Lunacy.
Contractors. It's lunacy. Well, I was going to assume that it's the same as most scopes, which is it is just a big chaotic. But so part of what you're doing is you're kind of maybe like differentiating yourself from the pack and like you talk about the the race to the bottom and all that kind of stuff, just enabling yourself to grow and kind of have a steady path. That's regardless of the competition.
We have to do what works for us.
Yeah.
Okay. This is my training, my experience working with the other longer term employees that we've had with Able. We try it. It doesn't always work. If McDonald's tried a McRib and a McPizza, didn't work, but they're still going strong.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to try some things. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But you have to accept
But
that.
you haven't sacrificed your base, while you're trying
The
those
bread and
things,
butter.
right?
The bread and butter, no.
stays.
Right.
Try some things as you go.
Yeah. Will that become the peanut butter and jam? Maybe, maybe not. You don't know if the jam is there with the peanut butter till you try it.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think it's any big state secret. Just, there was a lot of naysayers when I got in the business and started doing things my way.
Yeah. It's tough to do things different. Yeah.
Don't want to say it's my way. It's just the way we had to do it. Looking at margins, how can a union compete at the non-union rates and so on, right? Well, it's just how we did it.
That's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, it still is.
Yeah.
And it always will be. And, we could have another hour discussion on the union versus non-union
And
merits.
targets and things like that. And
Yeah. So, but let's talk about some projects, I guess.
yeah, does anything jump out as far as like something that you're really proud of?
I mean, you mentioned a handful of jobs there, and without getting into specifics, it's funny because the job ends up looking great,
But challenging.
It may have been challenging, but was it financially worth it? Right? Was there enough margin in there to make it worthwhile? So even though they end up looking great, we put our recognition out for some of the guys. Maybe that type of work is what we're moving away from. Maybe we're moving towards type of work that we did put on there that went better, that we had, minimal noise coming back from the field and the office staff, right? Low bandwidth to manage, and, there may have been margin there. So that's kind of how I look at the projects on our end is, what do we want to take from that in terms of how we're going to shape our business? And, Mike alluded to it. Well, that's going to go into our, database, and we'll be able to pull those metrics out the next time we have to make that kind of decision, right?
Yeah.
Able to compare, whether it's spec or,
Sure.
We talked about different customers, right? Different GCs all look at their business a little bit differently. And as you said, no offense to everybody, but they all manage things a little bit differently, and we align better with some customers. So, let's just say there's a lot to bid on right now. You can't bid on everything as much as we want to.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
He's got to say that.
Yeah.
Bid everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to, but if you have to make a decision that's critical, and let's just say it's 2 construction management jobs that you have to pick and choose between, you have an invite to both, well, we're able to go back and say, this is who aligns with us. They understand our partnership. more so than the other player.
Sure, yeah.
And being able to make that decision from an analytical perspective, that's huge for us.
Yeah.
We take a lot of pride in what we actually do in terms of our company, and how we're viewed in the marketplace.
Yeah.
That's one of those things for us that, it's a business. At the end of the day, being profitable is paramount, but we really do take a lot of pride in
It's a lot of passion.
what we
and pride
built,
there.
what our team has built, how good our team is, and ultimately making sure we get that recognition. So having this opportunity to come in here, and you said you could do this all day. It's really one of those things where you're getting your own tire pump for sure.
Mhm.
And like I said, we really appreciate that opportunity.
But anything you guys want to mention before we wrap up that we didn't talk about?
You were talking about our projects.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a funny story now. I don't know if it's a funny story. We've had a lot of success. Yeah. You mentioned earlier a couple of our jobs. Under Armour. Okay, great retail fit up. We did the Under Armour job. Over in Dartmouth Crossing, people will say to me, "Oh, that's great."
Or the Nova Center, the Gahan, or the what's the other
Gahan.
restaurant?
Oh,
in
yeah,
Nova
that's a
Center?
great restaurant. Yeah, we did that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. Blah blah blah.
There's no context on how the project went.
No context.
You're
Glamorous,
thinking
right?
in the back of your mind, like, we lost money on both. Those
That's neither here nor there. We're still here, so we are going to take our lumps on jobs. That's the way it happens.
Oh yeah, and everyone does,
right?
It's
It's
part of
just
the
to
game.
avoid them as much as you can. But we mentioned our projects. We got some hospital work. We've got some large institutional work. some
University campuses.
The University St. Mary's, the hub's a big project for us right now.
Right.
Yeah, that's okay. And it's a glazed over look. Oh, and we're also doing 9 Locks Brewery with Lindsay Construction. You're doing 9 Locks?
Yeah,
Well, that must be
yeah.
exciting.
Everybody knows about that, right?
Yeah.
It's a brewery.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Gotta
it's
get some
brand
attention.
recognition, people. And then, are you getting paid with beer?
Yeah. Do you get free beer after the
No, we get
contract?
the first batch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the test batch.
That's right.
Yeah. No, for sure. I know you mentioned lots of projects there, and you guys seem to be all over the place, and seems like things are going really well. And
Well, we're trying to build a recession-proof company too. That there's going to be ups and downs, but we want to be able to respond to where our demands are.
right. So before we wrap up, I know you guys are Italian. I got to ask who's the better cook. I don't want to start a fight here.
I'm not a good cook.
I'm not either. I live with
the
that.
wife.
That's right, and my mother.
Yeah.
So I'm well
Perfect.
looked after
Awesome.
there.
Are you guys going to get out to some of the World Junior Games over the holidays? Trying to in town here.
Yeah, I think I'm heading to a handful of them.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
Canada games.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have it right here.
I'm fortunate this year. It's a bit different. My daughter's brother-in-law is actually coming here to ref.
No way. So
Yeah.
he's reffing.
He's reffing, so
him.
he's a great fellow. I think he's Adam's age, and so we'll see him. And it's a good event. And when something like
The
that,
city's going to be buzzing, right?
oh, it is,
It's
and
gonna
it
be
brings it closer to home. When
Yeah,
you
it
got someone
does.
like that
Yeah.
involved with it. So no, it's a great event for the city. Maybe parking might improve. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty bad down here, isn't it?
I remember going to them in 2003 when I would have been 8-9 years old, and definitely looking forward to it. That was an unbelievable experience back then.
Yeah, for sure.
It's great.
I just want to say Merry Christmas to our listeners. This is going to be airing over the holidays. And once again, Adam and Mike, thank you so much for coming on and being with us today. And awesome to hear all about yourselves and about Able Electric.
Dan, thanks you so much for inviting us in. We really appreciate it. We've been watching your podcast, watching you and your team grow. You're doing a great service to the industry, and keep up the great work.
Thanks a lot, Mike. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I'll
Thanks,
second
Adam.
what Mike said. Like we say, the recognition that you're putting out there in the industry and that visibility, it's definitely something that is needed and very much appreciated.
Thanks so much, Adam. Thanks, Mike.
Okay,
Awesome.
great. Thank you.
Cheers. Cheers, guys. This episode is brought to you by Cook Insurance, your trusted insurance broker in Atlantic Canada for 50 years. Insurance is complex, and the Cook team focuses on delivering comprehensive solutions for your construction needs, including builder's risk, wrap-up liability, performance bonds, and project-specific construction. A Navicord partner since 2020, Cook is one of the largest construction brokers in Canada and offers national strength with a local touch. Whatever your insurance needs are, Cook has you covered. We would like to take this time to thank a longtime sponsor of our media platform, FCA Surety. The brokers at FCA Surety are experts in all surety bonding categories and provide unparalleled service during the bonding process.